Action!
Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. Higher still and higher, from the earth thou springest, like a cloud of fire, the blue deep thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, o'er which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run, like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. The pale purple even melts around thy flight, like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight, keen as are the arrows of that silver sphere, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear. Until we hardly see, we feel that it is there.
All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare from one lonely cloud, the moon rains out her beams, and heaven is overflowed. What thou art we know not, what is most like thee. From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. Like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden, till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not. Like the high-born maiden in a palace tower, soothing her love-laden soul in secret hour, with music as sweet as love, which overflows her bower. Like a glowworm golden in a dell of dew, scattering unbeholden its aerial hue among the flowers and grass which screen it from the view.
Like a rose embowered in its own green leaves, by warm winds deflowered till the scent it gives makes faint with too much sweet those heavy-winged leaves. Sound of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain awakened flowers, all that ever was. Joyous and clear and fresh thy music doth surpass. Teach us, sprite or bird, what sweet thoughts are thine. I have never heard praise of love or wine, that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. Chorus hymeneal or triumphal chaunt, matched with thine would be all, but an empty vaunt, a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want. What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What fields or waves or mountains? What shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind? What ignorance of pain?
With thy clear, keen joyance, languor cannot be. Shadow of annoyance never came near thee. Thou lovest, but ne'er knew love's sad sagety. Walking or asleep, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream. Or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? We look before and after and pine for what is not. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. Yet if we scorn, hate, and pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we ever should come near. Better than all measures of delightful sound, better than all treasures that in books are found, thy skill to poet were, thou scorner of the ground. Teach me half the gladness that thy brain must know, such harmonious madness from my lips would flow. The world should listen then, as I am listening now.
So the first kind of logical chunk of To a Skylark ends around line 30, because the first 30 lines and 6 stanzas are basically just a description of the bird and like it's singing, and it basically just kind of sets the scene because it talks about the bird flying over clouds that are brightening, so the sunrise, and singing in a beautiful voice and profuse strains of unpremeditated art. So it gives a very joyous and peaceful tone to the beginning of the poem.
In the next section, which we found to be lines 30 through 70, in the first 8 stanzas, the author compares the bird to things such as a poet and a high-born maiden, a glowworm golden, just things that give the bird a mystical and a positive aspect. And then it wraps it up by saying, like, how come this bird is so great without a hidden want? Like, it is just pure and good for no reason.
The last section is starting with line 71, and it starts off with a bunch of questions that the author is kind of asking about nature and like how the bird sees nature as so beautiful, and how the different landscapes are like intertwined with each other. And throughout the last section, the author is in awe with the bird and how careless and like selfless and free it is, and how even though like things are sad and like some like things are sad, the bird is still happy, and the author wants to learn from the bird. And it says like, teach me half the gladness and such harmonious madness. Like, the author is just so in awe of the bird and wants to learn how the bird is just so free.
So one thing that really stood out to me was in lines 91 through 95, he's saying, like, yeah, if we could scorn hate and pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we ever should come near. To me, he is basically the whole poem admiring how happy and free and like there's nothing evil about this bird, but he's also conflicted on how something who is not born with any anger or fear or hate can be so happy without that, because he feels like we need all those things like hate, pride, and fear to know what happy is. Like, he's confused on how the bird can be so content without any other feeling besides happiness.
Yeah, and like another point in the poem that kind of like builds off of that, so that's saying how humans view happiness, but he's talking about how he sees the skylark as like this happy, pure, innocent thing, and he sees that as like an ideal version of what he wants to be. Like he uses the entire first like 10, 12 stanzas to kind of explain how perfect and beautiful and peaceful this image is of the skylark flying through the air, and like how he compares it to like a rose and like a glowworm, and it's like singing is so beautiful that it brings happiness. But he like also works in the idea that like even if that's what he wants, it's not like he can't quite get that because there is like sadness and like hate and pride and fear, but that's how we measure our joy.
Yeah, and that's kind of like how humanity has always been. Like, yeah, this bird was just born with this
Like innate joy.
yeah, innate joy.
And it like continues to be joyful.
Yeah. He's like jealous and conflicted at the same time.
Mm-hmm. But I also think even if he is jealous of the bird, he's not like negative about it. He's just like, this is the most beautiful, like perfect
like
thing.
Admiration.
Yeah, and more just like, wow, that's amazing than like, oh, I wish I had that. But like, yeah.
Okay, so like one thing that I noticed throughout the poem was like how he like interpreted the bird, I guess, like how he perceived it, and like there's like a connection, I guess, between like the power of nature and the power of the human mind. Like the power of nature gives off like this beautiful bird that like sings all the time and is so beautiful and is like always happy, and then you have Shelley, who is perceiving it as like this entity, which is like basically what I just described, and like he's looking at nature and like interpreting it into like this big grand idea of how can it be so happy and like pure all the time. And so I just thought that was like cool. I feel like a lot of romantic poets like do that, how they like just see one thing in nature and just like turn it into this huge different aspect that they can like really elaborate on and share with others and such. And yeah.
I agree with that connection with nature and him. I do think that there's definitely just cut that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I feel like one big core idea of the Romantic era was they used nature to kind of convey their ideas, and that's really what Shelley's doing. He's using the image of the skylark as kind of a mode of explaining his idea of like innocence and finding happiness in such easy places.
Like, most people look at this bird and just think, oh, there's a bird, but you know, he really takes it to a deeper like perception of it and like uses it to convey how he feels.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, definitely romantic poets have a different lens on nature, especially in just like life in general. They really go out with like detail and just like emotion with it. But I like the stanza from 81 to 85, waking or asleep, thou of death must deem, things more true and deep than we mortals dream, or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? I think it's comparing it's like, he's saying that there's more to life and the bird is kind of immortal, like nature itself is immortal, but he's also saying that like, if death is like inevitable and like there are things that have to die, and then also in the end he really just wants to learn from the bird and from nature itself, and he just really wants to learn how he can be in peace with himself. And he's saying that he's comparing the world to like madness, and how the world is not like content, but he's saying that the world should listen just like him, and the world and him should both learn from something so simple as that, the bird.
Yeah, that's our essential ideas
And our analysis.
Yeah, like and subscribe, comment down below.